part 2 coming up. So hopefully you found that 4.5 and 9/2 are equal. Those are different ways of representing the same value, so they are equivalent. If I change 4.5 to a mixed number, it becomes 9/2. If I change 9/2 to 4.5 to an improper fraction, it becomes 9/2. And if I change 9/2 to a mixed number, it becomes 4.5. So you are going to be asked to use absolute value on your homework by evaluating the absolute value and then placing numbers in order. So let's make sure that we understand the concepts here and practice this from least to greatest. So first I'm going to write the value of each of these. So the absolute value of 1/2 is 1/2 because it's a distance of 1/2 from 0 on a number line. The absolute value of 3/4 is 3/4, and the absolute value of -3 is 3 because it's 3 units from 0 on a number line. So for my least value, 1/2 would be my very smallest, 3/4 being a little bit bigger than 1/2, but both of these fractional values certainly smaller than 3. So these are actually already in the right order. I'll separate them with commas and I'm good to go. On part B, the absolute value of -1 is 1. The absolute value of -8/10, 8/10. And the absolute value of 1/5 is 1/5. So now as I'm comparing, I have a decimal and I have a fraction. So I'm going to write these in the same form so that I can compare them. And I know that 1/5 is the same as 2/10, so I'm going to think of 1/5 as a decimal so that I can see that 2/10 is less than 8/10, and it's also less than 1. So this is going to be my least number. So the absolute value of 1/5 comes first. Next would be 8/10. So the absolute value of -8/10 would be my second number. And third would be the absolute value of -1, from least to greatest. All right, the final thing that you need to walk away from today knowing is about opposites and a fancy term called additive inverses, which basically means use opposites. So when we talk about opposites, we touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the lesson when we talked about different categories of numbers. So we said that whole numbers were 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then we said that integers were all of our whole numbers plus their opposites. So opposites are the same number, just with opposite signs. So the opposite of +1 is -1. So let's look at some real-life examples of positive and negative numbers. So we're going to look at some situations in words and in numbers and then look at their opposite. So the situation is you climbed up 7 stairs. The word up is my clue word to tell me that as a number, climbing up 7 stairs would be like a +7. And we all know that if I just write a 7 without the plus sign, that's the same thing as a +7. So whether or not I put that plus sign doesn't matter too much because we all know that 7 means +7. So the opposite of climbing up 7 stairs would be walking down 7 stairs. And as a number, that would be like going down 7 would be -7. Our second situation, you used 9.2 gallons of gas. We used it. We used it up. We no longer have it. It went away. So this would be a -9.2 or -9 2/10. The opposite of this would be filling the car up with gas. So if I fill the car with 9 2/10 gallons, that is like a positive 9 2/10. My third situation, a submarine descends 3/8 miles. Descends means go down. So in math, I would describe that with a negative number, negative 3/8. The opposite of descending is ascending. So if that submarine turns around and ascends, it's going up. So I would say 3/8 because that indicates positive 3/8. In our last situation, you win 50 tokens at the arcade. Well, that's plus 50. I've got 50 new tokens. The opposite would be spend 50 tokens. If I spend them, they're gone, they go away, they're used up, I don't have them anymore. So that would be a negative 50. So when we talk about the inverse property of addition, we mean that every number has an additive inverse. And that just means the same number with the opposite sign. So the sum of that number and its additive inverse is always 0. So here are some examples of additive inverse. 12 plus negative 12. That equals 0. Those are additive inverses. They're opposites. 5 plus negative 5. Those are opposites. They add to 0. I could also write it this way. Negative 5 plus 5. Still opposites. They add to 0. So we would call them opposites or additive inverse. 8 plus negative 8. Same number, opposite signs, so those are opposites, and they add to 0. Negative 12 plus negative 12, not additive inverse. Those are the exact same number with the exact same sign. Similarly, we have 8 plus 8 down here, not additive inverse, exact same number with exact same sign. Negative 5 plus negative 5. I'm adding the exact same number with the exact same sign. They're both negative, they're both 5s, those are not opposites. However, negative 8 plus 8, this would be an example of additive inverse, a negative and a positive that I'm combining. So those are opposites or additive inverse. That, my friends, is really all that you need to know for this lesson. So now you may log into Digits and complete your 4.1 homework. Good luck, everybody.